This is Nan McKay, and I would like to introduce you today to Ann Bennett. Ann is the founder of renegadebranding.com. She's an international speaker. She is a best-selling author, a coach, and a brand profit builder. We're going to find out what that is. So Ann uses her marketing and her branding genius to help women entrepreneurs and a few good men build their standout personal brands and boost their profits. She works with purpose-driven entrepreneurs who do transformational work so they can liberate and ignite their unique genius and authentic voice and build a profitable brand platform. So Ann has 25 years of experience in visual and graphic design. She's brought her talents to many major magazines, from Popular Mechanics to Vogue. So welcome, Ann.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's an honor and a privilege to be here.
Ann, you are over 60, as many of the people in my audience are, and you're still making an impact. What does impact mean to you?
It's such a great question, because we live in such a society where, like, you're supposed to retire. That's kind of the conversation. Like, what are you going to do when you retire? And we're kind of in this new, what I call a new paradigm. When you get over 50, I would say in general, you kind of look at things like, how can I contribute myself, my wisdom, my knowledge, things I've learned to other people while I'm here on the planet? Like, how can I make it a better place for people to live? And I think, the old idea, it's a very old kind of a historical idea that you retire or that you put yourself out to pasture or whatever when you're over 60 is just not true anymore. It's like we're in a whole new world. People are working and living, well into their 90s and over. And so for me, it's really about age is just a number and mine's not listed, essentially. It's like my energy is, what I go on. It's what I teach my clients, that people fall in love with you because of your energy. They don't really notice even how old you are, right? So it's like they might notice you're a little bit older. So the younger, I have a lot of younger men and women that look to me for advice and things like that, which is really fun because they're just kind of all shiny and new, right? Which is really cool. But I think, impact and influence really has to do with allowing yourself to really share your wisdom and be unapologetic for the choices you've made in your life and what you've actually done.
Well, I know what you mean, because I think I'm 80 now. So, I can look back to 60, and that's quite a while ago. But I remember that at first I wanted to hide it. And in fact, until pretty recently, I wanted to just hide my age, in a sense, like I didn't want to be judged in a sense for a number. So now I'm kind of coming out of my shell, of my age shell, and saying, well, maybe it's okay. And hey, I've lived this long. Who cares at this point?
Right. I think, somebody said to me recently, which I really love, he was saying, growing old is a privilege. It's a privilege. And I think, because we live in a society that is so youth oriented, by the time you're 40, you're an old lady, it's kind of ridiculous. But my watch likes to talk. I think that, we're just in a whole new time where it's great to be 70, it's great to be 80, it's great to be 90. And it doesn't mean that you don't have something to contribute or you don't have something to say about what's going on.
Yeah, I think you have to realize you have challenges. You're going to have roadblocks, but you've had those all your life. It's just they're a little different, more in the medical maybe end of things. But on the other hand, you say, hey, I'm still living, so something must be going okay. I better just keep going.
Yeah, I think obviously health, things change. It really depends on how you lived the first 60 years. I personally have been in the gym for 20, almost 30 years. So I'm the kind of person who has taken a big focus on my health and my brain health and things like that. So it's less, it's less of an issue. But I think for all of us, the parts wear out. That's just part of it.
Yeah. And good for you for being so concerned about health and being in the gym. I mean, I'm the opposite. You have to push and shove me into exercise in a gym.
Uh-huh.
But I know it's good for me. I know it's better. But you're right. If you could do that and get into the swing of things, that it becomes part of you. And I think that's helpful.
Yeah, it becomes more of a routine, I think. And even at this point, when COVID hit, I just started walking. And walking, is one of the best exercises you can do for your heart, your brain, your mind, everything. Just walk, for 20, 30, 40 minutes every day, and you're good.
That sounds
not like you have to pump iron.
Yeah, I like that better than pumping iron.
Yeah. It's fun, right?
So how do you feel, and you've kind of said it, but let's be more specific and strategic. How do you feel you're living out that impact that you want to make?
Well, I think, part of it, Nan, really is deciding what you want to do with yourself. I had a friend who was a contractor in Hollywood for a long, long time. And she's like, yeah, I'm going to retire. And then, a couple months into it, she's like, yeah, I'm not. And I was like, okay. But for me, it's always been pursuing creativity. I'm a uber creative person. I've always been that way. Pursuing things that I think are interesting creatively, and then it all melts into my business. So whether I'm reading something on brain health or NLP or mindset management, or I'm listening to a podcast about a subject, it all rolls back to my business, and that makes it to be a lot of fun. So it's like whatever I'm doing in my life, it's actually my business. It all rolls in. So
I love what you're saying. I just love what you're saying. So and I love it because I feel the same way, but how do people that even have never been in business before, how do they think about, how do I make that big transition? I think the word business and entrepreneurship sounds a little scary to people. How did you make that transition?
Yeah, we all make things, people in general, myself, more difficult than they actually are. And I heard something recently. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to, radio interviews, successful people. And it's so fascinating because this one guy was saying, "Oh, I'm just into ELF. If it's easy, lucrative, and fun, then I'm going to do it." And I was like, part of my philosophy is if the more fun I have, the more money I make, because it just takes it out of that realm of what you were saying, Nan. Business, we think of it as, oh, professional business, that's so serious and and it's really fun. So it's kind of like the money happens because you're having so much fun. People want to be with you. They see the value of your service. And that's when it all starts to happen. It doesn't happen, like when I first started my business, my brother was like, I don't know, sis, you're not a grinder. I don't know how you're going to do it in business. And it was, first of all, it was a little disappointing to hear that from my sibling. But at the same time, it was like, I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to do it the way that I think is fun and interesting. And I'll attract people that believe the way I believe and will want to do it in a more fun, way than, this nose to the grindstone. Not that I don't work hard, but it's hardly working sometimes. It feels like it's so much fun. It's more like play than it is work in the traditional sense. Even things that I have to do, notice I'm saying have to, but some organizational things that go on in the back end of the business, entrepreneurship is quite a bit different than being working for someone. All of those pieces were handled by somebody else. When you start your own business, there's no one to blame but you. Oh, that person. Oh, yeah. I always say, I'm going to fire her. And my friends are laughing because they know it's me, So, but, to me, it's like having a sense of humor is extremely important. And really being able to understand what are your strengths. And when you make enough money, you can hire people to do the things that you're not that great at, or you don't want to do at all. And so it's really different, I think, for people starting out. I started my business, I was 51 or 52 years old. I wasn't a kiddo. I had worked for 25 years in magazine art direction and consulting for a lot of major magazines in New York. And I'd write in with a white hat on, I'd come in, I'd save the day, I'd fill in for somebody, or I was freelance art directing on a project. So it was quite a bit different to develop working alone or working virtually with people, communicating. I'm still not that great communicating with email. Lots of people can communicate really well with email. I prefer to pick up the phone. It's really old school. So when I work with people, I let them know, I'll text you, but I'm probably going to call you just to make sure that the communication is understood and everybody's time is valuable, and used correctly.
It is very easy to be misunderstood in email. Part of it, I think, is because it's short and you're usually in a hurry to get your thought out, boom, boom, boom. And my son, who runs our big business now, says to me, it would be nice if you would say, hi, John, instead of starting, bam, right into the email.
Do this. Yeah, I think, there's such a, communication is actually about 35% tone, and you're not getting the tone when you're just typing something or texting something. So it's not so much the words, it's how we're saying it that people are missing. And so, wherever you are in your own self, if you're like, an upset waiting to happen, it's pretty easy to be upset by communication, right? Because you don't know what you don't see. I like to put a happy face or emoji or laughing or whatever, right, in there so that people don't think that I'm angry about the communication or upset. Because it's very difficult to know in an email or in a text.
So emojis are kind of trying to set the tone for the email when you can't do it in person.
Yeah. So you have a happy face, or somebody's laughing, or somebody's crying, whatever the case may be.
What do you think are the biggest challenges for women over 60 today?
I think a lot of it is technology, unless you're a tech head. I worked on computers forever. I always tell people I went to college when the dinosaurs roamed the earth, because they are kind of wondering, when it was. It was pre-computer. So for most people over 60, they learned computers later, where the younger generations, they almost operate that way. Their operating system is, 3.0, and my operating system is, not on the scale. Mine is 1 point whatever. So I think that one of the biggest challenges is to be someone who has an attitude. It's really an attitude of everything is figure outable. Everything is figure outable, and slowing down. I know for myself, I'm very impatient and I like to get things done really quickly. But when I can breathe and go, oh, let me Google that. And oh, I don't quite understand that. Let me watch a YouTube quick little thing and walk through whatever I'm working on at the same time they're talking about it. That's usually how I do things. I mean, that's how I got my first job. I had a class at the junior college in what was then known as paste up, where you cut things out and paste them down. In the middle of it, I got a job and was working ever since. So I'm kind of like that. I like to get just enough information, but not too much, but just enough so I can solve a problem and then move on. And I think that's challenging for people that are older because, we didn't grow up with technology, and all the kids today. That's the great thing about having grandkids or friends with young children are my favorites. Because they know how. I just give them my phone sometimes. I'm like, could you show me, like the 10-year-old, could you show me how to do this? And just be like a kid about it, because they're all showing each other. It's, I think that we get this attitude that, oh, well, I should know, or I've lived so long, and, and really, truly, even doing your business, you could do it all old school if you want. Honestly, I tell my clients all the time, don't build a website. Don't build a website till you understand your messaging and your brand. Otherwise, you're just going to be absorbed in doing that. It takes months and months. It's easy to go out and talk to people and get to know them and understand what they need. And then if that's what you do, you can offer it to them. So sometimes old school is great.
Yeah, sometimes it is. I think there are so many apps out there that really help us, and YouTube is, like you said, is great.
My favorite.
Now, you've worked for great companies like Vogue.
Yeah.
So how did mindset play a role in creating your own company?
I think, people ask me all the time how I got my job at Vogue. And I had no fashion in my portfolio. I had worked for all these kind of sporty magazines like boating and skiing and all these different kind of men's magazines, so to speak. And I just decided, I made a decision, which people talk about all the time. Just make a decision, make it right, and move forward. And know it's correct and continue. Know that the feedback is going to be yippee or that's not so great. And the not so great is where you learn everything. The yippee, you're great, you did it right, it's perfect, doesn't really help you ultimately. I was laughing about this because entrepreneurship is really about solving problems. So of course you're going to have a few problems all of the time. It never quite settles. It's always like iterate to awesome, correct and continue, move forward, learn a new thing, try a new thing. I think the challenge comes, Nan, with all of the technology and opportunities and options. Like today, somebody said to me, oh, there's a new, management system for your email. I think maybe you should use it. And I'm like, I kind of just think every other week it's something new. It's like science, which is so great. I mean, they're always developing new things and there's always new applications for things. And there's always the new kid on the block. So you have to kind of make a decision and stick with it. And if it works for you and your brain, the way your brain works, which is challenging in my case, because I'm very creative and nonlinear, then it becomes, what's the right way to do something for you, not what everybody's doing or what's working for another person, which a lot of times won't work for you. But I think just circling back to the Vogue thing, I made a decision I was going to work there. Then I decided, oh, I have no fashion in my portfolio. So I took their magazine and I redesigned pages that they already had designed with my own take on the design. So I knew that they would recognize the photographs, the typeface, and that it was their magazine, but it wasn't what they did. It was a different opinion on what they did. And that's what got me the job.
I hardly ever will you hear me say the word brilliant, but I think that was brilliant because it was familiar to them. They had labored over it at some point, and to see their stuff in a total new view, that was fantastic. What a great idea.
Thank you. Yeah, I think, we forget. I mean, I knew that I was a really good designer, but I didn't have that experience with that particular field in fashion,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
it was like, well, how am I going to do that? So I just made it up. I mean, I tell my clients all the time when I'm working with them, we're making this up right now. But if you can believe it and stand behind it, then it becomes that confidence level is very impressive. So with Vogue, it became, they were laughing about it, I'm sure.
I think it's a very smart way to do it. That's a great idea. What do you think has been the biggest factor in growing your business? Not establishing it, but growing it.
I think growing it, if you want to grow your business, grow with a group of people. It's not, especially in entrepreneurship, it can feel lonely and alone. And I know you and I, before we started, we were talking about, oh, you're going to go to this event and you're going to be with some other really cool people that are interested in the same thing you are, and you're going to learn some cool things. And that's really the way to move your business quicker. Is I think there's some old proverb, some African proverb, if you want to go far, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with a group. And I think that that's really true. It's like one of the biggest things to learn is to ask for help, particularly when you're starting, because you feel like, well, if I'm asking for help, no one's going to think I know anything. And in reality is everybody's asking everybody for help all of the time.
And the fact that you don't know anything about that particular thing, who cares? The point is that's why you're asking the question.
Doesn't mean anything. And
No.
and part of it is looking at how other people solved a problem. Like we were just sharing about the Vogue thing. That's how I solved that problem. And a lot of other people wouldn't have even thought of that. And it could spark a creative idea for you on solving another problem or doing something another way. Like a lot of times, I work with speakers and authors and coaches. And a lot of times they're like, well, I've not been recorded speaking. And so what could I do to start out? And I'm like, well, get a microphone. Borrow a microphone from your son who's in a rock band, and take some photographs of yourself on a stage or against just a straight, quiet background, and with a microphone, gesturing like you're speaking.
I think that's a great idea.
And it just gives you a place to start. We all think we're supposed to be like on these huge stages or have a big TED talk that's filmed in order to begin to do what it is you're doing. The truth of it is, the more creative you can be about creating things, you've got to start. You've just got to start somewhere. And it's more important to do it wrong, or more important to do it not perfect or not polished
Than not to do it.
and not to do it.
Yeah.
So, same thing with social media. if you want to do video, just use your phone. It's super simple. You turn it on. You talk, you post. I never watch mine because I'll do them over and over and over and over to get them perfect, or I didn't like my hair was sticking out or something. And you just got to close your eyes and jump.
I agree.
Kind of part
What
of
do you
it.
think has been your biggest challenge?
For me, the biggest challenge is mindset. I think limiting beliefs. You know, my folks were raised in the Depression. They worked very, very hard. They did very, very well. But I was raised with this whole thing of work hard, work hard, work hard, which is great because I have tenacity, discipline, perseverance. I have a lot of good things. And I also have money is hard to make. Or am I truly worth this amount of money? Or who am I to teach what I teach and help my clients do what I do? All these limiting beliefs are coming from my background. From, you know, it was all about getting a PhD. Well, I didn't get a PhD. I actually didn't even get a master's. I actually have no credentials in coaching. So, you know, I did finally get a certificate in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, because of the subconscious mind is what's ruling the day. So it's a way of reprogramming your limiting beliefs very quickly and very easily. Whereas when I grew up, it was like years of therapy. Years and years and years of therapy, and you don't get anywhere. So, you know, and we've changed our attitudes about that quite a bit. But, you know, I think that for all of us, no matter if you're starting out, if you're extremely successful, if you've been really successful before and you're starting a new career, you're always dealing with what's known as your upper limit of what you believe is possible for you. So for me, it was always like, wow, I never made six figures when I was working on my own. So how could I make six figures when I started my business? And I ended up making, you know, I'm making six figures and making pretty good money, but it's like, okay, what's next? You get to six figures, you're like, that is not enough money, okay?
Well, especially the more, it seems like the more you grow, the more marketing you have to do.
Yes.
Marketing and learning from other people, the next thing that you're trying to learn is expensive.
Yeah. And I think the thing to be really aware of, I mean, some of my best advice to people is just do the next right thing.
Yeah.
One little step, little by little by little, put together becomes a lot. I have a tendency to want to jump to, you know, oh, well, they're doing, you know, they're doing 500,000, they're doing 1 million, they're doing mid-millions. How do I do that? And forget that, you know, I need to grow myself. I don't believe that you can grow your business any bigger than you grow yourself. So I've got a long road, so it's kind of fun.
Yeah, an interesting thought to that. You talk about 4 renegade archetypes. So tell us a little bit about that. What are they? And then how do we identify the right one for us?
I think, you know, I developed these because when I started my business, I thought, oh, I've got to wear a business suit and I've got to look like everybody else. So I look really professional, and nobody really remembered me and nobody really knew what I was doing. So when I developed the archetypes, you're either a nurturer, disruptor, innovator, or a geek. They're generalizations of personality styles. I mean, we're all combinations, but we want to, because the brain likes to label to feel comfortable, and it's always sifting out information, and then it'll attach itself to clarity, right, of a label. So if you can label yourself that your essence or your primary characteristic is a nurturer, then it gives you a place to stand in authentically being yourself. And the authenticity of being able to own, honor, and really, I say, unleash who you actually are on the world is what we're all, I believe, as human beings, what we're all trying to do. And so the archetypes, I call them the renegade archetypes, help you to distinguish and to see which one you actually are. And when you can do that, you can do the visual and the verbal branding that aligns with that. So that when you walk in a room, you almost don't have to say anything and people are instantly categorizing you. They're instantly, in 3 seconds, they say, people sum you up and decide, I like you, I don't like you. Or you're interesting, you're not interesting. Or I relate to that person or I don't. We're doing this all the time anyway. So when you can use the archetypes, you can begin to go, oh, well, I'm a disruptor, so it's okay if my, pants and my shirt don't match. That's okay. That's part of my brand. Somebody asked me the other day about my hair. And I was like, well, it's a brand now, so I really can't grow it long. Oh, I know. They said, did you ever have long hair? And I was like, oh, sure. As I was younger, I had it all the way down my back and whatever. And but now with the short haircut, it's memorable. And it's something that people recognize. And it tells you a lot about me before I even open my mouth, right? So that's what the archetypes actually do.
It's interesting. I have done something similar, but I've used animals.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, it's kind of the disc profile and the same
animal form, right?
In a sense, and you're giving just a little bit of a different spin to it, which can be very helpful. So how would people know whether they are one of the 4 types?
Well, I do have a Renegade archetype quiz that everybody can take. So we'll put that in the show notes for them.
Okay.
And that's a great thing. It's just 9 questions. It's pretty easy. So it's like, when you first meet somebody, you do this, or this. People know themselves pretty well. It's rare that somebody thinks they're, it's really rare when somebody thinks they're a disruptor, but they're actually a nurturer. A lot of times they can think they're a nurturer and they're actually a geek. Because they're like, well, people make decisions on which one is better. But to me, they're all great. They're all great. They all have really a lot of positive characteristics that goes with each one. But yeah, the disc is similar in that way. Like I'm definitely a peacock. There's the peacock, I forget how it goes, the lion, the owl. It's similar to that in a sense, but it's a little more in depth in terms of you take the quiz and then I send you a sheet that actually tells you how you should present, what your language should be like, what people look to you for, and your Achilles heel. So we always have, with every superpower, right? There's always the Achilles heel.
So what is the head whipping hook? And the other question is, and why would that be so vital to your success?
The head whipping hook is something that you say that interrupts the noise in somebody else's brain. So, we're all standing here and we're all talking to each other, but we're not really present. We're thinking about the kids, the groceries, the laundry, what I'm going to say next, whatever. We're up in our heads. A head whipping hook is something that surprises and delights another person. So it's like, what did they just say? Or you didn't just say that. It interrupts their head language and gets you, gets you attention so that you can then have a conversation with them about something that's meaningful Let me grab a water. But so my head whipping hook is, it's smart to fit in, but it's brilliant and profitable to stand out. Hi, I'm Ann Bennett. If you'd like to know more, let's talk. I don't have to say a whole lot.
Yeah.
I don't have to go into a whole, and a whole languaging. We say too many words, Nan. We talk too much. When you realize it's really your energy that people are attracted to, you really don't have to say that much. You just have to be present and open with energy.
What do you think is the fastest way to get visibility? And that's really what you're talking about is visibility. What's the fastest way to get visibility in a broad sense? And then also, and you refer to it as make bank.
Yeah. You want to make money, right?
Yeah.
You want to be paid well for what it is you do. And part of that is the positioning. You know, a brand positions you, it's like a house. It's like a house. So you want to think of it as like, oh, it's a modern house. Oh, it's a craftsman. Oh, it's a this. Oh, it's a that. People are going to be attracted to different kinds of houses. So the brand itself is the attraction part. And the messaging is what gets them in the door to work with you, like how you speak, like a hook. Or people come to me because they know they're going to hear something they're not going to hear from everybody else in a different way. The dots get connected and they're like, oh, I never, like you were saying before about the Vogue thing. Oh, I never thought of that. That's a really cool idea. That I just bring that naturally. I've done that since I was a kid. It was always like, why does it have to be that way? It could be like this. And my dad would be like, you think the world should be the way you think it should be. And I'm like, yeah, is there something wrong with that? Isn't that cool? But he was trying to make a point, I think. But you know, you want to start to look at the fastest way to make money is to be able to communicate very clearly and very simply what it is you do, and get out in front of people in large numbers and inexpensively. So for most of us, that's networking, or speaking is my favorite, because once you get yourself on the stage, you've elevated yourself from everybody else in the pool, because they're all in the pool and you're on the diving board. So it's a totally different experience. And that's really the quickest way to create money. A lot of people are building online businesses and doing a lot of video online, which is great. And it all evolves around your brand and your message. I mean, what are you going to shoot your videos about? Well, are they going to be nurturing video? Are they going to be a disruptor video? Are they going to be innovative, or are they going to be geeky? That's where the archetypes come in. It's like, well, what do you really like? Because people want to connect with each other. So the fastest way to do that in when I teach my clients is to speak, either in podcasts like this, or to be live on stage, or create your own events. Or so one little thing I'll say about mindset. So when you use the word or, you can do that. But most of us say, and I'd like to do this, and I'd like to do this. And to be successful, I need to have this, this, and this, and then I have this. And that is the setup for failure. But if I am on a podcast, today I was very successful, or I could make a couple of phone calls, or I could go meet people at the coffee store, or I could play tennis, or my favorite, pickleball, make some new friends. Or that's a really good way to allow yourself to succeed every day, instead of having it be a gang of things.
And just overwhelmed by it all.
Yeah, people get very overwhelmed.
Making
Really
progress.
And part of it is our way of keeping ourselves from having what it is we really want, is to make it complicated and overwhelming. Simplicity is difficult to do for most of us because we're complex beings, and simplicity rules. The simpler, the better, the easier, the faster. That's kind of how it works. I think for me, I love speaking. I love to be with people. So if you're that kind of person, speaking is great. Just like you, Nan, you've got a podcast and, people know you because you put yourself out there.
True. What do you think is the new way to market the business that makes you irresistible and maybe really attracts your right fit or your ideal clients?
I think when you can be real and not like a real, like, now I'm going to tell you something, I'm going to be really transparent. It's kind of like saying, now I'm going to tell you the truth. It's like, well, what were you doing before?
You're lying to me.
It's like, okay, what did you do before that? Like when people meet me, either on the stage or in person, I'm exactly the same person. It's not a different person on the stage.
Yeah.
And then when you meet me, right? It's kind of like dating, and you have a dating profile and you see all these pictures and then you meet the person and there's
Go.
You're like, wait a minute. In the picture, you're like 25,
That's you.
It's like, a few wrinkles are always good to show. But I think authenticity, in a sense of being real and relevant, you've got to be relevant and solving a problem for people and being real about it. I think, we're no longer are we following the gurus and want people to be perfect. In fact, we don't want that, because it's very hard to attain, first of all, and it's not real. So I think,
And they're almost boring.
almost, because it's like, really, you made $1 million in 6 months? Well, there's no way I'm going to do that.
Yeah. So
I don't know, So we're looking to connection right now, particularly after the pandemic, and as our lives become more complex, with all these options and things going on, the more real you can actually be. People appreciate it. They get, I say to my clients all the time, listen, I make probably 80% of the time I'm making mistakes and falling on my face, but that 20% rocks, so it's kind of like, it's just a change of perspective. And I think that we want to be with people that we can feel. I mean, branding and messaging is all about feeling and emotion. And some of my tech guys are always razzing me about this because they're very geeky and they're like, what does emotion have to do with it? But emotion is how we've done everything, how we buy things, why we get married, why we build certain family units, things that we do is all around emotion. So I think that the number one thing people could do now is, as we were saying before, just get out and do it. If you don't do it perfectly, it doesn't matter. People don't expect you to be perfect. In fact, people kind of love it when you mess up because it makes them feel like they could do it too.
Yeah, and look, they're human. What do you feel of all the things and kind of where you are now? What do you feel you want most out of life?
It's such a great question, right? Because, when I was younger, I was fairly ambitious. I think I'm still fairly ambitious, but, it was always like wanting these things, these objects, or, being married to the right person or having a house or whatever it is. And as you get older and you've either accumulated, lost several times, you're kind of like, what what really matters to me. And I think, for me, I really care about people. I just want to be with people. And if I can help them and move them forward in the direction they want to go, either, spiritually or their mindset or their business, I'm excited to do that. It's really fulfilling. And the simplest things are what I want right now. I want to make dinner for people I love at least once a month. Otherwise, I'm busy. But, there's just little things that are really important to me. Having fun, playing with my friends, enjoying my friends and my family. Simple stuff like that, really. I used to think I wanted to be on big stages and travel all over the world, and that may or may not be what happens. I've done some of it. It's fun. But it's not any more fun than making dinner for somebody I love.
Good point. What are, let's say, 3 takeaways that you would like us to get out of this interview or the talk that you've done?
I think the first thing is your age doesn't matter. It's really irrelevant. Like you were saying, you're 80, I'm going to be 70. Many of my friends are over 60. It honestly doesn't matter. The only person it's in your subconscious mind that you think it matters. And of course, in our society, we have certain propaganda that we do over the years that create thoughts, as you know. So then it becomes like, well, if I was living in Italy, I'd be like a hot older woman. But in the US, I'm dried up and useless by 40, so we have to contend with those things. But I think the biggest thing I would like people to take away is age is just a number, and it's really not relevant to what it is you want to do or where you want to go. And that the second thing would be unapologetically yourself. If you're introverted, be introverted. It's a beautiful thing. People love to be listened to. The introverts are usually very good listeners. People fall in love with you and they don't know anything about you because you're busy listening to them, which is very cool. But just be how it is you really are, because to me, that's charisma. When you can be who you actually are in every situation, just yourself, that's why people fall in love with you. And I think the third thing is, if you want to, whatever type of life you would like to create, you have the power to do it. It doesn't actually take millions of dollars to have an extraordinary life. Really doesn't. In fact, sometimes it gets in the way because of all the different moving parts. I'm really looking forward to simplifying my life in a way, not making it smaller, actually making it bigger, but making it simpler.
Well, you've just brought up so many things that are very good for us to think about and maybe to take a look at our life in those ways. Is there anything else you'd like to leave our audience with?
Would just say, be unapologetically you, whatever that is, because people will fall in love with that.
Even if you're 80.
Even if you're 80. That's totally cool. She's 80. That's totally cool. I can do whatever I want. I can have a show too.
Well, thank you so much, Ann. I've enjoyed having you as my guest, and I'll enjoy just taking a look at what you're going to be doing in the future.
Yeah, come on over and take the Renegade Archetype quiz.
Okay, sounds good. I'll put it right on our website on your page.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you so much, Nan. It was really fun to talk to you.
You too.